Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another video on Spring and our awesome REST tutorial. So we are going to continue exactly where we stopped last time. So we have built our converter, we have built our base entity and the base DTO. So what we are going to do now is we are going to add some repository, we're going to add some abstract CRUDL API, and we're going to add some AbstractService. But before we do any of that, we are going to add one more thing to our converter, and that is an abstract method which takes in just an entity and returns a DTO. So what will this method do is we're going to use it in our how to call them converters, which are going to extend this abstract one, so you will be forced to implement this method. This is so that you always have to convert the rest of the stuff that you have in your class. So for example, here the entity, the base entity, it has an ID created and a modified timestamp, which is okay. But then you have something like a user. A user may have a username. We are not converting that here, so you're gonna have to do it in the user converter. So with this method, which you have to implement in your converter, you are going to convert it there. So we're going to do it like public abstract DTO will be the return type. We can name it convert. If the names are confusing, you can find better names for yourself. And it will take in a final entity. And yeah, that is it. Okay, as you can see, an abstract method in a non-abstract class, which means we made a mistake. We create an abstract DTO converter, which is not abstract. So we're going to have to make it abstract, and we're going to add some documentation to here. Entity to convert and returns. Voila. Okay, so with this, our DTO converter is definitely done, and we move on to a repository, so an abstract repository or distributed repository. So let's create a new folder here. So a new package, sorry, and let's call it repository. And let's create a new class and name it something like distributed repository, and it will not be a class, it will be an interface. So if you just want an interface, you just select an interface here. I mean, you can change it afterwards, of course. So if you just change here to class, it changes to class, or if you had a class, you can change it to interface, so it's not a problem. Okay, so we're gonna have give it a type of the entities, which will be the entity, which is something that extends a distributed entity, and this repository is going to extend the CRUD repository from Spring Data. And to this repository, we have to give a type of our ID, which is in our case an integer, and we're going to have it our entity. And this is it for the repository. We do not have to do anything else here. Later on, we're going to create a specific repositories, but for now we can just leave it as it is. Okay, so with this interface done, we're going to create another one, an AbstractCRUDL API interface, which will be used in our AbstractCRUDLService. So we create a new package, call it something like API. Again, maybe this would be better to be in some different module. Maybe we do it later in some different tutorial. But for now, we're going to keep everything in the same package, so in the same module, just in different packages. And so it will be an interface. It will be something like AbstractCRUDL API. and it's going to know also about our entity and about our DTO. So maybe we can just go to the converter and copy this here. So where is it? I lost it. Yep. So we have it here. Perfect. So to our API, we can add some methods that we are going to have. So for example, what I would expect this CRUDL API can do is to save something. So what we are going to save? We are going to save some DTO, for example. And we also have to say what will this save method return. So will it return something? Will it be void? In my tasks which I did up until now, I found it really useful that if you're saving something, so some entity, that it immediately converts it to DTO and returns it. It's quite useful, and you can see later when we have a more complex application, we are going to use this quite often. So it's really nice. So let's just create a method that returns a DTO, and let's name it save, and what it's going to take in is also a DTO. So we are saving a DTO, but also returning a DTO. So keep in mind, so when we are saving a DTO, this method will be converting it to an entity, saving that entity via the repository, and then converting the saved entity back to DTO. We can actually even in some cases return this DTO, but in so the one that we saved. But for example, in case where we didn't have where we are saving the DTO for the first time and it doesn't have an ID, you can do something like saving the entity, then it gets an ID, and then when you convert it, the new DTO will have an ID, but the old one didn't have it. So it was quite useful to return the new one, so the new saved converted one. And in that cases, there are also some, like if you have linkages to different entities and stuff like that, and that gets set in your DTO, it's better to convert the saved entity than just return the one that you were already saving. And to add another class for another method. So for now, we're just going to have 2, and later on we can add more. For example, I would expect that if I save my DTO, that I'm able to find it, for example, based on its ID. So something like DTO get by ID, and it's going to take in an integer, so an ID. Perfect. So we have our interface ready for now. Later on, we're going to extend it and maybe add some documentation to this, but it's obvious what this does. So let's create a new package, call it something like service. And let's create an AbstractCRUDLService here. Perfect. And this AbstractCRUDLService will again know about our types, so we can just copy this from here, and it's going to implement AbstractCRUDLApi. And now it's complaining about something, and what that can be, those are our methods. We need to implement it. So if you have something like this, you can just click anywhere in this line, press Alt and enter, and it offers you this really nice menu where you can just say implement methods, and it offers you which methods you want to implement. So you can choose between these two, but we need both of them. So if you hold shift and just go down, it will select both of them. Click OK, and voila, we have our methods here overwritten. For now, they're not doing much, but later on we are going to extend them to add some functionality to them. As you can see, our application is taking some shape. So let's just add some documentation really fast to our methods. So to the API, and write what actually it is and what it's going to do. And DTO save. And so if you don't find it, return null. And yeah, for now this will be it, and we are going to continue the rest of the implementation in the next video. So please, as always, like this video and subscribe to the channel to get some more and new exciting videos. Please, if you have any comments, any remarks, anything at all, just give me a shout, write me a comment, send me an email, anything that you like. Hope you're having fun, and see you in the next video.